Hi, I'm Sarah Bryan,
And I'm Corwin.
and many of you know us because we have a 2-year-old named Jojo who nearly drowned on March 29th. And the reason we're making this video is because many of you prayed for him and supported us practically and spiritually through that time.
Yeah, so a little bit about what happened to him. We were in an unfamiliar place with friends. There were other kids. Everybody was kind of moving inside, outside, and so there came a moment where everybody thought he was with somebody else, but he wasn't. He had wandered off. He had found a pond and he had fallen in, and it wasn't until it was time for the meal that we really noticed. So it probably ended up that he was in the water of the pond for about 10 to 15 minutes. So we found him, we got him out, brought him inside. He was blue. He wasn't responding at all. His heart had stopped, his lungs had stopped. Luckily, somebody we were with knew CPR, so she started CPR immediately, and that did a lot to help him. And then the EMTs responded really, really quickly. But we were a ways out of town, so then he was flown by helicopter to Sacred Heart Hospital in Spokane. And we rode there in a police car after him. When we got to the emergency room, they were they weren't mean, but they what they kept saying was, "This may be very bad for JoJo," and we sort of had a rough idea of what that meant.
Um, yeah, before we even got to the hospital, because he was completely unresponsive, they were doing CPR on him for 25 minutes. That's a very long time when your child looks dead. But it gave me that time to start calling for help. So I called godparents, I called just everyone and said, you got to start praying that he lives, because right now we don't know if he's going to live or if he's going to be severely handicapped, or anything could happen to Jojo right now. Um, and obviously, scariest moment for parents. And looking back, you ask, okay, God, where were you in that moment? And I didn't have to wonder that very long, because I just knew God told me, like, I sent my bride, I sent my body. Because by the time we got to the hospital, there was a friend who'd just gotten off shift, ready to like lead us through to where we needed to be. We had 2 priests had beat us to the hospital and were there to confirm Jojo and just to offer the sacraments and like hold our hands while we waited to find out what happened. We had friends come with from church, all from church, coming with relics. They brought tea, praying with us, and the cathedral, when Father Connell heard, went ahead and offered the Sunday masses. It was on a Saturday night, so he offered all the Sunday masses on behalf of Jojo. Um, we were just so supported.
It was it was it meant a ton to have all those friendly faces with us in the hospital, because it was terrible. We didn't know what was going to happen. So that was it was a Saturday, and so that was a Saturday night. And through that night, we learned pretty quickly that he was probably going to live, but we didn't know anything past that about his heart, about his lungs, or about his brain. So he was on a ventilator to keep his lungs going. He was sedated. He was on epinephrine to keep his heart going. He was on an EEG to see what was going on, if anything, with his brain. And that was all Saturday night and hours. And we finally decided, okay, we're going to go sleep on the hospital couch. So we woke up a few hours later, Sunday morning. Nothing was really different. And they told us, there's nothing for you to do. We're taking care of him. Go home. And so we went home. And that was, as Sarah mentioned, that our priest had decided to offer the 9 a.m. and the 11 a.m. masses for him. In between those masses, we were home. The pediatrician called me and said, "You're not going to believe this." One of the nurses was checking on him, and Jojo opened his eyes. He made eye contact. He tracked movement, and he started trying to communicate. And so the nurse said, "Can you give me a high five?" And he just looked at her and just barely moved his hand towards hers. So I just started weeping on our basement floor. And I had to tell, my wife and my mom are right there. And I'm like, it's good. It's happy crying. And so I told them what had happened. But the hospital said, don't come. He went back to sleep. He needs to rest. We want as little stimulation as possible. So just stay home. Well, 3 hours later, they called us again. They said, you're not going to believe this either, but he's off of the ventilator. He's off of the breathing tube. He's awake and he would like to see you. So we hustled back to the hospital.
So, I mean, we were so grateful because that meant that he was in there somewhere. But we didn't know exactly what he was going to need. After a traumatic event like that, your brain can also swell and cause further damage for about 3 days. So he was basically trying to keep him really, really quiet for 3 days so that then we could check on his brain with an MRI to see, okay, there's the actual event and then there's the possibility of swelling. What are we actually going to be dealing with moving forward? And he wasn't really smiling. He was trying to talk. He was trying to read. He would try to suck his thumb and just miss. So we were so thankful to see, like, okay, you're in there somewhere. You are able to make meaningful movement, but we have no idea what this is going to look like for you. So on the 5th day in the hospital, we got, the MyChart online results from his MRI. And, they check like 10 different things. Everything. This was before we talked to the doctor, but it said, blah, 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 normal, blah, 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 normal, blah, 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 normal, all down. I think the 10th thing was translated to sinus congestion. Completely clear. So, like, no signs of anything had happened to his brain.
Yeah. And so that was confirmed when we, Thursday morning, we were back at the hospital and there was rounds. So the pediatrician and the nurses came by, and the pediatrician just turns to one of the nurses and was like, should you give them the good news or should I? And then she just turns around and tells me anyway. And she said, yeah, there's nothing on the MRI, nothing that we're concerned about at all. And so then I just started weeping again in the hospital in front of all the staff, and they didn't really know how to react to that. So
I think they said the M word, meaning miracle, makes me uncomfortable, but this looks like a miracle.
Yeah.
And over the next few days, again, this was towards the end of Lent, we just watched him come back to life. It was pretty difficult for him. You could tell he was really working, but every day we went from, can't really sit up on his own to after 9 days in the hospital, he was bored and was running around all by himself. And I'm the stereotypical mom, like literally chasing him through the halls. And he was discharged after 9 days in the hospital while everyone was praying a novena for him the day before his 2nd birthday. So we got to be home on his birthday.
And people keep asking us, how's he doing now? And you would have no idea. You see him like before the accident to today after the accident, you would have no idea that anything happened. And I just want to recognize that is not how most childhood drownings end. That's not how most drownings end. That's not drownings of people that we've known or heard about. That's not how they ended. And I think something that we're trying to recognize and live in and pray with is we were given a huge gift in that he was taken away and he was given back. And we don't really know why. And we don't know why the same thing hasn't happened for other people. And so we just recognize that this is a tremendous gift from God. We don't ever want to be forgetful, and we always want to be grateful.
So we wanted to tell you thank you. We were so carried. We know that there were people all over the world who were praying for us. We had a gallon bag of relics by, a couple days into the hospital, just to be with him, even if we couldn't be there. And people filled our fridge for all of April, so we could just focus on our little people. And we just want to tell you that all of your prayers and your acts of love really mattered, and you were God's presence in Christ's body for us.
Thank you.
Say
Can you say hi? Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
Can you say Jesus?
Yeah.
Can you say Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good enough. Yay.